Hey everyone, April 6, 2023. Welcome to another of my short videos on investingsuccess.ca. 1937, somebody by the name of Louise McWhirter wrote a book, and in her book she detailed her theory of stock market forecasting. How did she develop her theory? Well, she had made friends with a banker in Cleveland. He worked for the Cleveland Trust Bank. And he set her up with access to literally decades of old financial data. Agricultural output, mining output, the number of tons of freight that were hauled on railways, you name it, she had access to it. She laid it all out and she created, a multi-year, multi-decade picture of the U.S. economy. And she was an astrologer, so then she started looking for any sort of a correlation between these economic cycles that she was seeing and something in the zodiac wheel. And she finally found it. And it was the north node of Moon moving through the 12 signs of the zodiac wheel. And she was able to determine that it aligned to economic cycles. And by the way, even though the book was written in 37, probably about 15 years ago, there was an astrologer from New York, and he had the original manuscript, and he actually republished the book, kept Louise McWhirter's name on the front of it. You can get this thing from your favorite bricks and mortar bookstore or your favorite online bookseller. $20, give or take. I highly recommend that you add it to your bookshelf. It is a classic and it is worth the read. Okay, north node of Moon. What is that? In our cosmos, the planets orbit the sun in a plane of motion, in a path, and it is called the ecliptic or the ecliptic plane. The moon goes around the Earth in something called the lunar ecliptic. Now, as this diagram shows, when you have two planes that are not parallel, they intersect, and there will always be 2 points of intersection. One point is called the south node, one point is called the north node. They're separated or spaced by 180 degrees. So for the purposes of simplicity, astrologers typically only add the north node to a zodiac wheel, and that's what McWhirter did. She focused on the north node. Now, in a typical zodiac wheel, the planets go counterclockwise around the zodiac. The node goes clockwise, opposite. And so here's a zodiac wheel generated for today, April 6th. There's a blue arrow pointing to the node. It's at 5 degrees of Taurus. And so from here, it's going to go to 4 degrees of Taurus, 3, 2, 1, and then it'll slide into Aries, work its way through the sign of Aries. Then it's going to work its way through the sign of Pisces and eventually enter the sign of Aquarius. So here's what McWhirter said. When the node enters Aquarius, the economy slows down. And in fact, the economy is at low ebb. The economy could even be in dire crisis. But it's a bad time. But eventually, the node will work its way through Aquarius, and it starts then to go into Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, and so on. The time for the node to go one time around the zodiac is 18.6 years. Now, the time from low ebb and potential economic crisis from one to the next is not necessarily 18.6 years bang on. Could be 18 years, could be 19 years. And I've studied a lot of these things, and yeah, there is some leeway, but the actual time for the node to travel once around is 18.6 years. Some economic forecasters, commentators make reference to what they call the 18-year real estate cycle. Some people call it, I've heard it called the 18-year economic cycle. Whatever it's called, it's all the same thing. And the people that come up with these other names for it are just a little hesitant to connect it to astrology. Astrology has a funny way of sending people running away with their hair on fire. But yeah, anytime you read about the 18-year cycle or 19-year cycle, it's all the same. Okay, it's the McWhorter cycle, the North Node going through the signs of the zodiac. So from here, in the late summer of 2026, and that's, 3.5 years from now, that's not a long time, Node is going to enter Aquarius. And this long cycle, 18.6-year cycle, is going to come to an end in late 26, early 27. It's not going to be pretty. And if you think 2008 was ugly, I think that was just a warm-up. It's going to be even worse this time around. Now, the one thing that these long cycles have in common with one another is in the waning several years of the cycle, there tends to be an increase in the amount of available credit or an increase in the amount of spending in the economy. So, to better appreciate this, let's have a look at the past few cycles and see what we can discern. Okay, who's that guy on the left? Lyndon Johnson. Yep, big spender. Late 60s, Mr. Johnson was busy rolling out what he called his Great Society Spending Plan, and it was filled with government initiatives, expensive projects, spend, spend, and spend until you drop. Bretton Woods Agreement had been penned in the mid-40s at the end of the war. And basically it said the US dollar was going to be the global reserve currency. If nobody moves, nobody makes any crazy decisions, everybody's going to be just wonderful, except it didn't work that way. Countries were busy spending, just like Lyndon Johnson was busy spending. Countries were spending. It affected the value of their currencies, and it disturbed the value of their currencies relative to this parity that they were supposed to have with the US dollar. And the Bretton Woods Agreement was getting frayed and frazzled, and it's starting to fall apart. There was also a drive for low unemployment. The theory was, let's hire more people, pay them wages. That wage money is going to be used to buy goods to support the economy, except it stoked inflation. That was the basis, by the way, for the Phillips curve. There was an economist called Mr. Phillips, and he devised a curve where he examined inflation relative to unemployment. Take any economics course at the college level, university level, you'll learn about the Phillips curve. Really, this was just the end of a long 18.6-year cycle, and it was characterized, as I say, by big spending. Let's have a look at what the markets did. Oh, nasty. Here's a chart of the Dow Jones between 1968 and 1970. And at the tail end of one of these cycles, you're going to see the market slump and the economy will shrink. That's just how it works. And so the Dow Jones at the end of this cycle fell 30%. If you were exposed to the markets at the time, yeah, it hurt. Ouch. But a lot of mom and pops were not at that point. They worked hard, they put their money in the bank, they collected interest on their money, and life was good. But for those who were in the markets, yeah, it was painful. But then, the pain subsided, another 18.6-year cycle got underway, and everybody said, yeah, we've learned our lesson, we won't do that again. Well, yeah, they did. The late 1980s, you were into the waning years of a long cycle, and it was characterized by not necessarily big spending, but big lending. Across America, savings and loan institutions had sprung up, and they were on every street corner. The focus of these institutions was to take in deposit money and lend out mortgage money. All fine, all good, except there got to be too many of them, and they were all competing with each other, tripping over each other. And then interest rates started to tick higher, and these guys got squeezed. Have you heard that story recently? Yeah, Silicon Valley Bank. We can't learn from our past mistakes. We can't learn from history. We keep repeating, tripping over our shoelaces. Anyway, wave of S&L failures meant the government had to step in with bailout packages. It was the end of another 18.6-year cycle. Oh, and I should point out that in the late 80s, credit cards were becoming fashionable. Everybody had multiple credit cards in their wallet. Spend, shop till you drop. And it ended very badly. I don't know if you were around for the 87 crash. It was short and it was ugly. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people got disgusted and they sold at the bottom. They probably sat like deer in the headlights as the market recovered. And towards the early part of 1990, they probably worked up the courage to get back in the markets, and then slam. They took another 20% haircut. And that is typical of the behavior that will occur at the end of one of these 18.6-year cycles. There was probably more people exposed to the market at that point. And no doubt a lot more money was lost, and a lot more pain was endured. But everybody said, we will not repeat that anytime soon. Well, that's interesting until you repeat that again. 2006 to 2008, you were getting into the waning years of another cycle. This one was characterized by big lending again, except this time it wasn't savings and loan institutions. Across America, people with low income, poor income prospects, in some cases no jobs at all, suddenly were eligible for a mortgage. Mortgages were sliced and diced and parceled into asset-backed securities. I learned all about this in my CFA studies, and the CFA Institute put their blessing on these things and said, what could possibly ever go wrong? That was in 2004, 2005. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Indeed. These asset-backed securities were passed through the desk of Fitch and S&P and Moody's, and they were given AA credit ratings, and then they were sold to pension plans and investment funds. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Well, it got out of hand. And in the fall of 2008, Lehman Brothers had failed. Bear Stearns was in trouble. Governments were scrambling to put together bailout rescue packages. It was ugly. But the government printed a lot of money and prevented absolute disaster. And who was the Treasury Secretary at the time? Hank Paulson, former Wall Street guy. He knew exactly what was going on. He knew about these cycles. And he put on a sad face, and he pretended he was working up a sweat, and he pretended that his breathing was labored, and he went to the government, and the government had to bail everybody out. It was going to be the end of the planet if they didn't. He knew exactly what he was doing. Got a lot of money for his friends on Wall Street. That was just the end of another 18.6-year cycle. Here's the chart of the Dow Jones. The market knew what was going on. The fall of 2007, I was involved in the junior mining industry. Not a good time. Institutions were dumping your shares. It was margin call every day. And look what the market did. It fell 50% by the time the bailout packages had been implemented in March of 2009. Now here there was a lot of people with exposure to the markets, and there was a lot of pain. A lot of money was lost. And we promised ourselves we would never do that again. And another 18.6-year cycle got underway. And so here we are, 2026, like literally 3.5 years from now, we're going to be facing one of these things again. And In our thesis, we've said that the waning years of one of these cycles is characterized by increased spending, increased lending. Well, we've just had some regional banks that have failed. We had Credit Suisse in Zurich that had to be absorbed into a larger competitor. Banks, I think, are going to be a little reticent to get engaged in credit and spending. Where is it going to come from? I want to draw your attention to a few snippets of a press release that was released March 23rd in California. Apple. Yeah, the people that make your Apple phone. Today they announced Apple Pay Later. Oh, but it's designed with your financial health in mind. And it allows you to split purchases into 4 payments and spread them over 6 weeks. Wow, you can use your Apple phone to track and manage and repay. You can buy things spur of the moment up to $1,000. Just pull out that phone, point and click, and it is yours. Buy now, pay later. They're going to give you a chance to even dip your toe into the waters. It's not going to initially impact your credit rating. How about that? So Apple's not a bank. How the hell are they doing this? Oh, they got into bed with MasterCard and Goldman Sachs. Both of these institutions have banking licenses. So Apple is now de facto a bank, and it is going to give you credit. I say it's only a few short steps from here, and Apple will soon be dabbling in car loans and home mortgages. What's to stop them? They've got access to that Goldman Sachs MasterCard banking license. They're going to use it. They're going to make money on this. And here's what's scary. If you think Apple is the only company that's getting into this, think again. It's only a matter of time. Probably right now as I speak, somewhere in Silicon Valley, Google is coming up with the Google Buy Now, Pay Later platform. Corporate money is going to drive us to the crescendo of this next peak. It's not going to be savings and loans. It's not going to be subprime mortgages. It's going to be corporations like Apple. And the money is going to be made available to you so easy, literally on your phone, on an app. And that's what's going to drive us over the edge. And it will be the end of another 18.6-year cycle in 2026, 2027. And then we will say we will never do that again. But we will. And another 18.6-year cycle will get underway in 2027. Governments will probably have to step in and bail everybody out again. And if you think 2008 was bad, I predict this next one is going to be even worse. There's more people than ever before exposed to the financial markets. Households have got more debt than ever before, more credit card debt than ever before, more automobile loans than ever before. We are on shaky ground. And this next one is going to be ugly. But here's the good news. You don't have to hide under a rock. Take advantage of it. If you know it's coming, take advantage. All of this credit is going to jazz up the economy. And you know what? The financial media, I listen to Bloomberg every day. It's going to be gloom and doom. Tune that out. Pay attention to what's happening. The economy is going to get jazzed up with all of this spending, all of this credit. House prices are going to rise. Stock market's going to rise. Yeah, there will be warning signs. Some smart economists will be trotted out in front of the media, and they will say, what are we doing? We can't do this. People will ignore them. The sweet aroma of all of that credit, that crack cocaine is going to be too much. People will ignore the warnings. And then in 2026, just like a stealthy intruder in the dead of night, the North Node is going to slide into the sign of Aquarius. And in late 2026, early 2027, the party will suddenly come to an end. Somebody somewhere will fail. The market will panic and start diving. the proverbial shit will hit the fan, it will be the end of another long 18.6-year cycle. Okay, that's it. But do take advantage of it if you know what's coming, and I think we know what's coming. Don't forget, Financial Astrology Almanac. I talk a lot in here about McWhirter and the various nuances of the 18.6-year cycle. I got my newsletters. Oh, just today on udemy.com, I uploaded a 9-module learning course, and I think I've got it priced at $39. What this one is entitled is As Above, So Below. And I show that the planets in our cosmos are spatially distributed according to the Fibonacci sequence. And then I show you Fibonacci mathematics. And I show you how to identify Fibonacci extensions and retracements on price charts. And then I introduce you to some very basic astrology along the vein of McWhirter. And I show you that there is a correlation between the basic astrology and the Fibonacci retracement and extension levels on a price chart. And I basically offer you a whole new way of looking at a price chart and at the markets. My Follow the Trend book is now out. It's available on Amazon. It's available through your bricks and mortar bookstore because it's distributed in the US by Ingram Publishing. It's basically a review of all of those fancy chart technical indicators. I explain the math in layman's terms. I show you which ones work and which ones don't. And I tie that into some Fibonacci mathematics. And I show you how to overlay a price chart with the Fibonacci stuff and then use one of these technical chart indicators to indicate to you if and when the trend is changing. And it's at the change of trend that you either want to get out of the way or load up on stock. And so this is a very interesting book to add to your bookshelf as well. Okay, that's it for me. I'm going to try to get one more of these out in the next couple days. And then next week, I am, for the first time in over 3 years, actually pushing away from my desk and taking a little holiday. And believe me, I need it. It's been a tough 3 years with COVID and everything else that's gone on. So, pull out that Apple phone and download that app. And if you see something that you like, buy now, pay later. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for listening.